The rain showed no mercy that afternoon, drumming against the windshield of my battered Subaru in a relentless rhythm. Each drop felt heavier than the last, blurring the neon reflections of streetlights on wet asphalt as I eased into the daycare lot in northeast Portland. My phone vibrated against the cup holder, a sudden, sharp ping that sliced through the monotonous thrum of the wipers. Expecting Christopher's routine updates, reminders about groceries, or Mia's current fascination with her strawberry yogurt, I blinked at the screen. Instead, my chest tightened, breath catching in a way that made my ribs ache. Asterisk moving to Barcelona with Clare. Transferred savings to my account. Good luck with rent, asterisk. The words glowed in stark white against black, as if daring me to look away. My knuckles whitened around the steering wheel, and the world shrank to the cold, unfeeling rectangle of that screen. Somewhere behind me, Mia, my little spark of light, was probably gripping her paint-smeared backpack, waiting for the comforting touch of her mother. My mind raced, simultaneously calculating and paralyzed. I am Elena Harper, 38, freelance illustrator, formerly known for last-minute client deadlines and long nights hunched over a drawing tablet. I had built a life that balanced creativity and motherhood, bedtime stories replacing the glow of computer screens. Now, in one terse message, Christopher Caldwell, my ex-husband, obliterated years of careful planning, emotional investment, and financial security. 9 years of marriage had yielded $14,500 in savings. 9 years of scrimping, every freelance job, every deferred vacation erased. My checking account held a humiliating $412. Rent, $2,400, loomed like a guillotine, due in 4 days. I forced myself out of the car, letting the rain plaster my hoodie to my skin. Each step across the slick asphalt felt heavier than the last, a physical manifestation of dread that pressed on my chest. Inside the daycare, the scent of crayons, warm paper, and faintly sticky juice boxes wrapped around me, oddly comforting amidst the chaos. Mia's small arms shot out, dark curls bouncing with every step. "Mommy, did you bring my bunny crackers?" she asked, her voice a melody of innocence. I knelt, forcing a smile that felt brittle, a mask I was terrified would crack. "Not today, sweet pea. We'll grab some on the way home, okay?" Her eyes blinked, trust unbroken, unaware of the storm gathering outside my mind. I signed the clipboard with hands that refused to stop trembling, the teacher's cheerful chatter fading into a muffled haze. Each syllable of Christopher's text replayed like a sinister echo in my head, slicing through any remnants of calm. Claire. His assistant, all sharp-edged ambition and perfectly manicured nails. Always lingering at office parties a beat too long, always flattering him with that dangerous smile that promised more than conversation. And now, she had my life in Barcelona, while I was left with nothing but scattered bills and a trembling 5-year-old. I stared out the window, rain streaming like liquid glass, wondering how someone could dissolve the foundation of your life with a few words typed in haste. My stomach knotted as I realized there was no one to call, no safety net to catch the free fall. Just Mia and me, standing in the middle of ordinary chaos, facing extraordinary betrayal. I had ignored the subtle alerts for far too long, the unexplained late nights, the constant secrecy of his phone, the dismissive chuckle whenever I tried to pry. In hindsight, each little clue was a flashing neon warning, impossible to miss. In the car, Mia buckled herself into her booster seat, humming a rainbow-themed song with carefree abandon. "Is Daddy making tacos tonight?" she asked, tilting her head so her large brown eyes caught mine in the rearview mirror. The innocence of her question cut sharper than any betrayal. "Daddy's away," I murmured, my lips tasting bitter words I didn't want to say. "We'll have pizza instead." Her face brightened instantly, blissfully unaware of the fractures spreading through the foundation of our lives. I tapped a reply to Christopher, "Thanks for the heads up." 3 words that barely contained the scream threatening to escape from my chest. My pulse raced, not merely with fury, but with the crushing weight of impending survival. How do you shelter a child when everything that once seemed stable has been ripped away? I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, the Portland skyline a blurred smear behind streaked glass, and silently promised Mia she would never witness me crumble. Back at our modest apartment, I tucked her in front of her favorite cartoon. Her laughter, fleeting and bright, became the only anchor I had in this storm. Rain hammered against the windows like relentless percussion as I retrieved my phone and dialed the bank. My stomach twisted with dread. The representative's tone was courteous but impersonal, confirming Christopher had siphoned $14,500 from our joint account into an inaccessible place. "Since it's a joint account, there's nothing we can do," she said, as if reading from a script. I refreshed the checking account screen, $412. Barely enough for necessities, let alone the $2,400 rent looming in 4 days. I collapsed onto the couch, the betrayal pressing into me with physical weight. Memories intruded despite myself. Years ago, at a design conference in Seattle, he had dazzled me with handwritten notes tucked into my sketchbook, words that promised a future built together. I had been a rising graphic designer then, fueled by ambition, late-night coffee, and a hunger for recognition. Every deadline felt like a stepping stone, every critique a challenge to refine my craft. We had envisioned a life filled with creativity, laughter, and shared victories. Now that vision lay in ruins. The apartment seemed smaller, the shadows in the corners darker, as if the walls themselves mourned the loss of what had once been. Mia's soft breathing from the couch offered a fragile comfort, yet the responsibility of keeping her life intact pressed relentlessly against me. I felt like a tightrope walker above a pit, every gust threatening to send me plummeting, but there was no option to fall, not when a 5-year-old depended on me. I stared out at the rain-slicked streets, droplets trickling down the glass like tears I refused to shed. Thoughts collided: anger, despair, calculation. How could one person take everything you'd worked for and vanish with it, leaving you stranded? Survival demanded more than emotion, it required strategy, grit, and a determination I hadn't yet fully realized I possessed. I swore then, in the low hum of a Portland storm, that Mia's world would remain bright, even if mine had become a tempest. Christopher, a marketing prodigy with a winning smile, had the uncanny ability to sell anything, even a future I wholeheartedly believed in. We moved fast, swept along by infatuation and ambition. Marriage came almost naturally, Portland became our home when I received a coveted promotion, and we settled into a modest condo overlooking the Willamette River. The city's misty mornings and cobblestone streets had once felt romantic, alive with possibility. When Mia was born, I scaled back to freelancing, exchanging boardroom presentations for bedtime stories, late-night sketches for lullabies. Christopher's career surged forward, a tidal wave of accolades and networking events, and I had trusted it to carry us both. But beneath the polished surface, fissures were forming. 2 years ago, subtle inconsistencies appeared: unfamiliar charges on our shared credit card, receipts for dinners and hotels that he claimed were business meetings. Our financial cushion had already taken a hit when we sold the condo to invest in a friend's startup, an ambitious venture that crumbled within months. Each time I questioned him, he waved it off as market unpredictability, an unavoidable risk. I wanted to believe him, and so I did, ignoring the receipts that silently screamed otherwise. Then there was his mother, Margaret. She drifted into our lives like a shadow from Seattle, clicking heels echoing with judgment. "Mia needs discipline, Elena," she would declare, eyes scanning my paint-smeared jeans as if they were evidence of incompetence. "You're too soft." Christopher never defended me. His quiet acquiescence felt like complicity, a betrayal that slowly eroded my confidence. My phone shattered the memory with a sharp ring. Margaret's voice sliced through the apartment, cold and precise. "Elena, what have you done? Christopher says you're withholding Mia unless he pays you more." I froze, heart hammering. He had already betrayed us, stolen our savings, and now spun a story painting me as the villain. "I'm moving to Spain with Clare," he admitted, the words brutal and unapologetic. Margaret's tone turned accusatory, venom dripping from each syllable. "I'm not the one lying. Don't play the victim," she snapped. "I've seen the texts. You're threatening to cut him off from his daughter." Each word landed like a blow, unveiling the extent of the manipulation. This wasn't merely about money, it was about control, narrative, and Mia's very life. My hands shook, caught between outrage and fear. This was bigger than I had imagined. The fight wasn't just financial, it was a battle for truth, for justice, for the child whose small fingers gripped mine in trust every morning. I glanced down at Mia, lost in a sea of crayons and coloring sheets, blissfully unaware of the storm raging around her. Her laughter was fragile yet luminous, a tether to purpose. Something hardened inside me, a resolve that refused to bend. Christopher had assumed he could erase our life, our family. He was gravely mistaken. The next morning, the sky wept a relentless grey as I drove past familiar streets toward his downtown office. Rain streaked the windshield, a cold curtain that mirrored my mood. The city seemed subdued, muted under the storm, yet every puddle and foggy street lamp reflected the urgency pulsing through me. I needed answers, needed to confront the man I once trusted completely, and see if the person I had loved was still somewhere beneath this cruel, calculated exterior. Each step toward the building felt weighted, a march into uncertainty. The sound of tires on wet asphalt, the steady drizzle tapping the roof, the distant honk of impatient commuters all faded as my mind sharpened. Today, I would uncover the truth. Today, Christopher would meet the consequences of underestimating me. The receptionist's practiced smile faltered the moment I asked for him. "Mr. Caldwell resigned last week," she murmured, twisting a pen between her fingers as if it were a lifeline. "Yesterday was his last day." My chest went cold. "Last week. Yesterday." My voice sounded strange, foreign, like it had been borrowed from someone else. He had been here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And now he was gone. She avoided meeting my gaze, her eyes darting nervously. "He submitted his resignation 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, I can't discuss personnel matters." 2 weeks. While I had been meticulously preparing Mia's preschool art show, scheduling parent volunteers, and alphabetizing her painted masterpieces, Christopher had been quietly dismantling the life we had built together. I thanked her mechanically, my legs trembling, and walked toward the elevator as the full weight of the revelation pressed down. This was no rash decision. Every step he had taken had been deliberate, precise, surgical. In the dim concrete of the parking garage, I pulled out my phone and dialed Sam, one of Christopher's colleagues who had always been kind, though distant. The line clicked alive. "Hey, Elena," Sam said, his tone careful, almost hesitant. "Are you okay?" "You knew," I blurted, anger slicing through the fragile thread of composure I clung to. "You knew he was planning this." A long silence. His hesitation spoke volumes. "He made me swear not to tell anyone," Sam admitted finally. "He said he needed a clean break, that Claire made him happy and that you and Mia would be better off without him." Happy. The word ignited a flare of disbelief and fury in my chest. "He took our savings, Sam. Did he tell you that?" "No," he said softly, almost in a whisper. "I didn't think he'd go that far." I ended the call, my fingers trembling, heart pounding as fresh betrayal carved a hollow in my chest. At home, a certified letter waited like a predator. Christopher's divorce petition had been filed a week ago, listing a Barcelona address and explicitly relinquishing all parental rights to Mia. A note from his lawyer smugly asserted that I had substantial savings to cover our needs, a cruel distortion of reality that twisted the knife deeper. Desperate for leverage, I rifled through Christopher's desk, scanning drawers and folders, clutching at anything that could give me even a sliver of control. Beneath a pile of old bills, I discovered an envelope addressed to Margaret. Inside lay a birthday card, its cheerful cursive and dated postmark a mockery of my current turmoil. "Mom, thanks for the Barcelona apartment deposit. Claire and I can't wait to show you our place. Couldn't have done this without you. Love, Christopher." The card was 3 months old, back when he first mentioned a promotion. Margaret hadn't simply known, she had financed his escape. My hands shook as I photographed the envelope, a mixture of rage, clarity, and sorrow colliding violently in my chest. This was no longer about salvaging a marriage. It was about safeguarding Mia's future, defending her from the consequences of deceit and manipulation. "He took everything," I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of disbelief, "and now he's trying to make me look like the villain." Anna's sharp gaze swept over the documents, her pen tapping rhythmically against the polished oak desk. "What Christopher did may not technically break the law," she said, voice even, almost clinical, "but it's reprehensible. Joint accounts give him access, But judges rarely overlook deliberate exploitation. We can petition for emergency child support and request a freeze on any assets he's trying to move out of reach. She leaned closer, eyes locking with mine. We need solid proof he's earning a steady income while evading responsibility. Without that, the court will be cautious. I nodded, clutching my phone like a lifeline. Screenshots of his text and the bank transfer were all I had, but they were enough to ignite a spark of determination. That evening, my phone rang. It was my parents, calling from Eugene, their voices steady and reassuring through the line. "We're covering your rent," Mom said, her tone absolute. "You're not facing this alone, Elena." Her words loosened the knot in my chest, a brief release from the suffocating tension. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to breathe fully, to imagine taking the next steps without collapsing under the weight of betrayal. Later, once Mia was tucked into bed, the soft hum of her lullabies fading from the nursery monitor, I returned to Christopher's deserted workspace. On our shared laptop, I discovered an unfinished email in his drafts, addressed to Clare. Attached was a resume detailing his new position at Horizon Global in Barcelona, starting just 2 days after his text. My pulse quickened. This was the concrete evidence Anna had warned we would need. Fingers trembling, I forwarded the information to her, the act a mixture of hope and raw fury. Christopher had assumed he could vanish, slip across the ocean without consequence. But the threads of his deception were fraying, and I was determined to pull them apart. For Mia, I would become tireless, unyielding. Midnight found me at the kitchen table, the apartment enveloped in stillness. Mia's soft snores floated through the hallway, a fragile reminder of the stakes. Christopher's laptop sat open before me. I remembered his predictable passwords, birthdays, anniversaries, and entered them one by one. The cloud storage unlocked, revealing folders filled with pieces of his betrayal, transfer confirmations, emails to Clare, and a file chillingly titled Custody Plan. My stomach twisted as I read. The document outlined a strategy: leverage my postpartum depression, which I had battled with therapy and persistence, to portray me as an unstable mother. Their goal: take Mia to Spain, severing the life we had built. Tears blurred my vision. I remembered those early months after Mia's birth, when exhaustion wrapped around me like a fog, when despair whispered in the quiet hours of night. Christopher had appeared attentive, bringing coffee, encouraging therapy appointments, appearing invested. I had believed him. Now, those gestures were nothing more than ammunition, carefully curated to destroy me. Worse still, Margaret's text surfaced, dated months prior. "Once you're settled in Spain," one read, "we can push for custody." Her meticulous planning and history of manipulation provided them leverage, but it also gave me clarity. I now saw the battlefield clearly. Every move, every smile, every moment of feigned concern had been calculated. I closed the laptop briefly, heart pounding, fists clenched on the edge of the table. The apartment was silent, yet my mind roared. This was no longer just about money, or even betrayal. It was about protecting Mia, shielding her from the machinations of people who should have loved her. Every fiber of my being coiled with resolve. They had underestimated me, and I would not let them succeed. Among the scattered documents, one file made my stomach tighten: a screenshot of a Cayman Islands account containing $45,000, established years ago with Margaret's covert assistance. It wasn't merely a financial safety net, it was irrefutable evidence of a calculated conspiracy, proof that Christopher and his mother had plotted against us from the very beginning. My fingers trembled as I forwarded the entirety to Anna, but it wasn't fear that shook me. It was a fierce, burning determination. They had believed they could erase me from Mia's life. They didn't realize I would fight with every ounce of my strength to protect her. The phone rang as Mia dabbed bright blue paint across her small canvas, humming an off-key tune. Her giggles were a temporary balm, a reminder of innocence amid chaos. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice made my pulse race immediately. "Elena, we need to talk," Claire said, her usually confident tone frayed with anxiety. "And why should I care?" I asked, lowering my voice so Mia wouldn't notice the tension. "He's hiding money from me too," Claire admitted. "Another account in Liechtenstein. Over $200,000. He's booked a flight to Portland tomorrow, and I I'm not sure what he'll do. I stepped out onto the balcony, rain misting my face as the Portland skyline loomed under brooding clouds. What exactly do you want, Claire? Protection, she whispered. If I hand over evidence, I need immunity. Christopher will come after me if he finds out I spoke. I immediately consulted Anna. Within hours, a strategic plan was crafted, full documentation from Clare in exchange for legal immunity. By nightfall, Claire delivered detailed bank statements showing the Liechtenstein account, along with a sworn affidavit revealing the months-long, meticulously plotted scheme by Christopher and Margaret to abandon us and secure custody of Mia. Her betrayal of Christopher wasn't loyalty to me, it was self-preservation, but it provided the final puzzle piece I had been searching for. My heart thumped violently as I saved the files, a strange mixture of dread and triumph coiling in my chest. Christopher was returning, unhinged and dangerous, but now I was ready. The Portland courthouse loomed ahead, austere and unyielding under grey skies. Inside, Anna's calm confidence anchored me as we prepared for the emergency hearing. Across the polished floor, Christopher's lawyer stood, perfectly groomed, exuding arrogance. And there, to my surprise, was Margaret, her expression frozen into a mask of disdain. You should be ashamed, she hissed, venom dripping from each word. Anna interrupted sharply, her tone ice-cold. You will be called as a witness for aiding Christopher's abandonment, she warned, cutting off Margaret's theatrics before they could gain traction. Inside the courtroom, Anna presented the evidence with meticulous precision. Text messages, drained savings, the Barcelona employment confirmation, Cayman and Liechtenstein accounts, and the custody plan all laid bare. When the document outlining their attempt to weaponize my postpartum depression surfaced, the judge's eyes narrowed sharply. Christopher's lawyer tried to frame me as the aggressor, but the judge silenced him with a single, firm glance. I've seen enough, she said, her voice absolute steel. Motions were granted. Christopher's foreign accounts were frozen. Temporary full custody of Mia was awarded to me, with Christopher restricted to supervised visits. As we exited the courtroom, Margaret's glare followed, sharp and accusing, but a small flicker of triumph warmed me from inside. For the first time in months, I wasn't merely surviving, I was actively reclaiming what had been stolen. The following morning, my phone rang again. An unfamiliar international number flashed across the screen. This is Lucia Vega, HR at Horizon Global, Barcelona, the voice announced professionally, and my pulse quickened. The next chapter of this confrontation, it seemed, was only just beginning. A crisp, professional voice cut through the line. We received an email from you regarding Christopher Caldwell's employment. He was terminated yesterday due to undisclosed legal issues. I froze. My apartment hadn't been touched, nothing stolen, no sign of tampering. I didn't send any email, I said, disbelief creeping into every syllable. Lucia, from Horizon Global, forwarded the supposed message, distorted and inflammatory, containing false claims about Christopher's custody dispute and attached copies of my legal filings. My pulse accelerated as realization dawned only one person had the access and cunning to orchestrate this, Margaret. She had visited under the guise of support after Christopher's text, her designer heels echoing softly on the hardwood floor, while quietly rifling through my files. Every smile, every word of sympathy was a calculated ruse. She had engineered this sabotage to cripple Christopher financially, ensuring he could not comply with court-ordered support, all while weakening my position. Minutes later, Christopher called. Rage dripped from his voice, raw and uncontained. You got me fired, Elena. It was your mother, I replied, forwarding the incriminating email. Check the documents. She had access while she was here. Silence. Then a muttered, I'll call you back. The pause between calls felt interminable, every second a drumbeat of tension. An hour passed. His texts arrived, an inadvertent confession, exchanges between him and Margaret revealing her meticulous scheme to undermine me from the start, including plans to portray me as an unstable mother to secure custody of Mia. The betrayal was layered, cruel. Christopher himself hadn't grasped the full extent of his mother's manipulation. I sent everything immediately to Anna, who wasted no time filing identity fraud charges. Margaret's web of deception began to unravel, each thread exposing her selfish ambition and leaving her vulnerable to legal repercussions. With Clare's corroborating evidence, Anna acted decisively, securing an emergency restraining order mere hours before Christopher's flight touched down in Portland. Airport security intercepted him, delivering the court order and a summon for the hearing scheduled the following morning. His call from the security office crackled with fury. "I came to fix things, Elena." "One-way ticket," he spat. I didn't hesitate. "See you in court," I replied, attaching Clare's detailed documentation proving the truth. Every lie he and Margaret had spun was now laid bare. The courtroom that morning was tense, every eye fixed on the proceedings. Anna presented evidence with surgical precision: the Liechtenstein account, the custody conspiracy, and Margaret's identity fraud scheme. Christopher's lawyer faltered under the weight of irrefutable facts, each argument collapsing like a house of cards. The judge ordered a full forensic accounting, uncovering not only our $45,000 but additional hidden funds Margaret had stashed for Christopher. Electricity seemed to hum through the courtroom as rulings fell like bricks in the protective wall I was constructing around Mia's future. Christopher's defiance waned, his gaze meeting mine briefly, perhaps with a flicker of regret. But I no longer sought the man I had once loved, he existed only in memory. The weeks following the hearing brought quiet vindication. The forensic investigation exposed the full extent of Christopher and Margaret's hidden resources, resulting in substantial civil penalties for both. Each revelation reinforced my resolve, reminding me that justice is not always swift, but when it comes, it can be absolute. Mia thrived under the security we rebuilt, her laughter filling the apartment, a testament to resilience, love, and the hard-won triumph over deception. Margaret's world unraveled with ruthless swiftness. Her identity fraud charges became public knowledge, and whispers in Seattle's exclusive country club corridors quickly escalated into scandal. Invitations vanished, social events ceased, and her carefully curated reputation crumbled like fragile porcelain under the weight of exposure. Meanwhile, Christopher's standing in Portland's marketing circles deteriorated as court records detailing his abandonment became accessible to anyone with the slightest curiosity. Once polished and admired, he became a cautionary tale, a man defined by betrayal and absence rather than talent. He seldom exercised the limited visitation rights granted by the court, and when he did, his presence felt distant, more a shadow than a father. Clare returned to Spain, leaving the chaos behind, her immunity agreement ensuring she remained untangled from the fallout. Her departure marked the end of a long, draining chapter, a final severing of the ties Christopher had attempted to manipulate. With the recovered funds, I finally secured a home for Mia and me, a sunlit condo nestled in Portland's Alberta Arts District. The walls were alive with her paintings, a riot of color that made every room feel like a celebration of creativity and resilience. Returning to full-time design work, I joined a firm that recognized my skills, one that valued flexibility and understood the challenges of single motherhood. Deadlines became motivating rather than oppressive, and the hours I spent at my desk were productive, purposeful, not stolen from my child. Mia thrived in her new preschool, surrounded by friends, laughter, and the freedom to explore. Each day, she returned home glowing with excitement, recounting tiny victories and discoveries, infusing the apartment with energy that erased traces of fear and betrayal. One quiet evening, as I tucked her beneath her soft, bunny-themed blankets, she tilted her head, gaze wide and trusting. "Will Daddy ever visit, Mommy?" she asked. I brushed a stray curl from her forehead, heart swelling with love and protection. "I don't know, sweetheart," I whispered. "But we're enough. You and me." Her smile was gentle, unwavering, a beacon anchoring me to hope and certainty. That text, the one that had been meant to destroy me, good luck with rent *, had ignited something entirely different. It had forged a strength within me, tempered by betrayal yet reinforced by unconditional love for my daughter. I realized then that survival was no longer the goal. I was building, crafting a life that could flourish despite the scars, layer by layer, brushstroke by brushstroke. To everyone who has walked alongside this journey, through the heartbreak, battles, and hard-won victories, thank you. Elena and Mia's story is proof that resilience, courage, and love can reshape even the most fractured beginnings. Every canvas we paint tells a story, and every day offers the chance to create your own narrative. Keep shaping your truth, and I'll meet you at the easel, ready to paint the next chapter together.